Beyond Boundaries. The First Crucible Prologue. The Approaching Storm. The universe breathed darkness. Between the sprawling star systems of the Galactic Union, something ancient and terrible was stirring. Dr. Elena Rodriguez hunched over her holographic display, her dark eyes tracking the anomalous energy signatures that had been haunting her research for months. The swarm was more than just another threat. It was a force of nature, a consuming tide that devoured everything in its path. "They're coming," she whispered to herself, tracing the computational models that predicted the invasion routes. Each simulation ended the same way: total annihilation. Across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, humanity was blissfully unaware of the approaching nightmare. Chapter 1. Before the storm, the last frontier Captain Thornton had never been a traditional military man. His path to leadership was paved with unconventional choices and an uncanny ability to see solutions where others saw only obstacles. Born in the reconstructed ruins of New Chicago, a city that had risen from the ashes of climate disasters and global conflicts, Thornton understood survival intimately. His parents were environmental engineers who had fought to make uninhabitable lands livable again. Their legacy wasn't just in the terraformed landscapes, but in the resilience they instilled in their son. Military academy had been a challenge. Thornton didn't fit the standard mold. While other cadets memorized tactical manuals, he studied adaptive systems, biomechanical integration, and cross-species communication strategies. His thesis on interspecies cooperation had been laughed out of most academic circles, until First Contact changed everything. When the Galactic Union's initial scout ships entered Earth's solar system, Thornton was the first to volunteer for the diplomatic corps. Not because he was a natural diplomat, but because he understood that humanity's survival depended on its ability to adapt. The unlikely Squad Sergeant Evan Morales represented everything the traditional military feared and secretly needed. A third-generation immigrant from what was once Mexico, now part of the North American Cooperative, he carried a heritage of survival and humor. His recruitment story was legendary within Earth's Interstellar division. During a simulated First Contact scenario, while other candidates froze or followed rigid protocols, Morales had improvised a communication strategy using nothing more than a universal translator and an encyclopedic knowledge of cultural exchange techniques. Sometimes, he liked to say, the best weapon is a well-timed joke and the ability to listen. The squad he assembled was as diverse as humanity itself. There was Sewell Rodriguez, a quantum mechanics specialist who could recalculate battle strategies in milliseconds. Maria Chen, a biomechanical engineer who could repair equipment using nothing more than her adaptive toolkit. Jake Williams, a former wilderness survival instructor who understood adaptation at its most primal level. Each member brought something unique. None of them fit traditional military stereotypes, and that was precisely why they were chosen. Chapter 2. The Mitra Plateau Trials. The plateau stretched before them like an alien canvas. Jagged crimson rocks intersected with crystalline veins that caught and refracted the harsh green sunlight. This was neutral ground, a testing site for potential allies. Commander Dries of the Iron Vein Battalion represented everything traditional about the Chlorian military culture. His biomechanical exosuit wasn't just armor, it was an extension of a martial philosophy built over millennia of constant warfare. "Humans," he growled during the initial briefing, "you understand nothing of true combat." What Dries didn't understand was that humanity's combat experience wasn't just about technological superiority. It was about survival against impossible odds. The first test was simple on paper. A 2-kilometer sprint across treacherous terrain. For the Iron Vein, it was a demonstration of their technological might. For the humans, it was an opportunity to show something deeper. Morales watched the Chlorian soldiers surge forward, their exosuits creating perfect synchronization. Then he turned to his team. "All right," he said, "we're not going to outmuscle them. We're going to outsmart them." The humans began their run differently. They communicated, adjusted, supported each other. Where a Chlorian would see an obstacle, a human saw a challenge to be solved collaboratively. Chapter 3. The Obstacle of Adaptation. The multi-stage course was designed to break spirits. Vertical cliff faces that shifted unpredictably. Electrified tunnels that would incapacitate the slightest miscalculation. Floating platforms that responded to movement with violent energy bursts. The Iron Vein approached each challenge with mechanical precision. The humans approached with creativity. Sewell Rodriguez used her quantum calculation skills to predict platform movements, guiding her teammates through seemingly impossible routes. Maria Chen's adaptive equipment became impromptu climbing gear. Jake Williams used his survival training to find paths where technology saw only chaos. General Neris watched from his observation platform, his molten yellow eyes tracking every movement. The Xenon delegate beside him clicked and chittered, a language of subtle communication that spoke volumes in minimal sounds. Unconventional, the Xenon observed, potentially dangerous. Neris's response was measured. We're exactly what we need against the swarm. Chapter 4. The Swarm, an incomprehensible threat. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's research files painted a terrifying picture. The swarm wasn't a traditional enemy. It wasn't even a conventional life form. Imagine a collective consciousness that could consume entire planetary systems. Not through traditional warfare, but through a process of total molecular assimilation. Every piece of matter, organic, technological, geological, became part of its expanding network. Previous civilizations had tried to understand it. None had succeeded. The swarm didn't have motivation in any way humanoids could comprehend. It simply expanded, consumed, integrated. And it was coming. Chapter 5. First acceptance. When Thornton stood before the Galactic Union's War Council, he didn't make grand speeches, he presented a simple truth. We don't claim to be the strongest, he said. We claim to be the most adaptable. The assembled delegates, from crystalline Xenons to silicon-based Croxian warriors, listened. Some with skepticism, some with growing curiosity. Morales, standing slightly behind Thornton, couldn't help but add, and we make pretty good company during long space voyages. A ripple of uncertain laughter spread through the chamber. Uncertainty was breaking down. Epilogue. The journey begins as their transport lifted from the Mitra Plateau. Humanity's first interstellar military contingent knew they were stepping into something unprecedented. The swarm was coming. The galaxy was watching. And humanity was ready to prove that survival wasn't about perfection. It was about adaptation, to be continued.